Good morning. So, on behalf of Triplelift, first of all, I'm Thomas Brandon, VP Economic Inclusion at Triplelift. And on behalf of our Triplelift team, we'd like to welcome you to this important panel discussion. And before I turn it over to the panelists for some expert insights, I want to just provide you some context about our State of DE&I investment and digital advertising report that we just released this week. So over the past 2 to 3 years, as most of us know, there's been a number of advertisers making commitments to invest in diverse-owned media. And while most of the reports and articles around this story has really been positive, they've been mostly anecdotal or just qualitative insights. So we wanted to make sure that we developed a report that would provide quantitative data that will help us more accurately measure the current industry's progress so far. So existing studies or previous studies have focused on overall diverse-owned media, or maybe in some cases, representation of diverse talent within the advertising industry. But this particular report focuses on specific insights related to DE&I investment and diverse-owned supply in digital media only. So we approach this with the hypothesis that, there's still some confusion within the industry about how advertisers define their DE&I commitments, and also there's still some barriers for smaller, diverse-owned publishers as far as entering this diverse-owned media landscape, especially as it relates to programmatic. So to disprove or confirm our hypothesis, we commissioned a study of over 200 digital marketers as well as 100 diverse-owned publishers, with the goal of gaining perspectives and understanding about how they perceive their own roles within fulfilling DE&I investments in digital media. So moving on. So now that we've established the purpose of the report, let's take a look at some key learnings from our findings. So first, it's promising to note that over 80% of both marketers and publishers expect DE&I budgets to increase year over year. However, these growing budgets are challenged by the perceived lack of scale and quality inventory within diverse-owned media. Secondly, programmatic advertising has emerged as both the most effective and widely utilized method for reaching DE&I spend goals and driving scale. Interestingly, though, while programmatic is most commonly used, both marketers and publishers agree that they still value the effectiveness of working directly with individual publishers, which suggests that there should be a balanced approach that prioritizes the voice and audience of the publisher as well. And the third key finding here is that when asked, respondents said their hopes for the future regarding DE&I included more inventory and industry standards were the top choices among both groups. This highlights the need for a broader range of diverse-owned media and also clearer guidelines for the industry. And lastly, there's a strong desire for improved solutions to track success, specifically determining success that's beyond ad spend, but also how do you measure the effectiveness of the publisher's other key performance, such as engagement and reach. So lastly, as a wrap-up to the report, we also highlight some actionable next steps for various stakeholders within the industry. For example, for marketers, the recommendation is to reevaluate their relationships with publishers by clearly communicating what their DE&I objectives are and also how they measure the impact of their messaging. For publishers, it's critical that they demonstrate their value that goes beyond just merely meeting diversity spend goals, but also how they can drive substantial business outcomes for marketers. And as the industry, it's important that we establish mutually beneficial standards for both marketers and publishers to help drive scalable inventory. So with that said, in closing, if you would like to gain access to this report and also that would provide more detailed information, please scan the QR code that you see here on the screen and download it. And also, if you'd like to learn more about our initiatives for promoting equitable opportunities within the diverse-owned media space, go to triplelift.com/economic inclusion. So with that said, I'm like you, I'm excited about our expert panelists here. And to kick it off, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator for today, Ryan Joe, Editor-in-Chief of Adweek. Ryan?
All right, thank you so much, Thomas. And thank you all for being here and sharing your day with us. I'm really pleased to kind of kick off this panel on the state of DEI investment and digital advertising. I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves, starting with Christina.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Pyle. I'm the Chief Equity Officer at Dentsu.
Hey everyone, I'm Ranisha Bing, co-founder of BOMISI, which is an acronym that stands for Black-Owned Media Equity and Sustainability Institute. I'm also a publisher, so I'm the founder and CEO of Her Agenda.
Hi everyone, my name is Takara Baker and I'm a VP of Marketing at Triplelift.
Usually I yell, "What's up, Ken? How are you? Are you good?" There you go. All right. That's good. I am co-founder and chief strategy officer at Group Black, Bon & Bow, and happy to be here.
All right, great. So Thomas kind of indicated some of the hurdles, or that there are some hurdles when it comes to DE&I investment, media investment. And so, maybe I'll just start with you, Bonin, since you kind of like pumped up the crowd. How optimistic are you about DE&I investment increasing over the next year? Or is it going to decrease? Is it going to remain the same?
I don't really want to go first. Does somebody else want to? Ladies first. There's 3 ladies up here. I feel like that is the wrong thing to do.
I said I want to piggyback. I don't want to lead.
No, I'm happy to go first. Don't get me wrong. But
Who wants to lead?
We'll go down the line.
Okay, Christina.
If we're doing predictions, I lead diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we talk about it in my role, we start with the workplace and then we think about the marketplace. So if the signals for the retraction in spend or investment in DEI programs and DEI initiatives and resources, if that's any indicator for our publishers and our owners, it's a retraction. It is. I know. Are you guys feeling it? Are we feeling a retraction in that spend, the attention span? So I think it starts with us internally, and then it impacts you guys in our investment externally from the marketers. So passing it on.
Yeah, I think we are at a place where when it comes to DE&I spend, we have to educate marketers, we as in the publishers, the media owners, about the value that we deliver beyond just diversity. And that's the challenge right now because, as you know, when you want to include a brand lift study in a campaign that requires certain minimums, often the media buy isn't big enough to meet those minimums. And so, there's this cycle where there is value. We need to prove the value with numbers, but that's getting harder and harder to do these days. So hopefully we can, on this stage together, come up with a solution. But that's the challenge I see about just really educating the marketplace about the value of diverse-owned media beyond the diversity play.
I mean, I think it's interesting because if you saw or heard Thomas earlier, in our report, we saw that investment is expected to increase, but even when we saw that information, we were kind of thinking through it and really discussing, well, in reality, like how is that actually coming into fruition? Because a lot of the challenges relate to investment and having the ability to really bring forth kind of media that requires diverse-owned media and diverse-owned publishers to have a lot of money and a lot of infrastructure. And so, yes, I think marketers say, yes, we want to increase spend and it's the goal, but in reality, like when you kind of see what comes through or what we're going to see come forth, there is a retraction that we're expecting.
The dirty secret is that, 100%, we're seeing the decrease. But it depends on when you think about DEI, what we're actually, so the reality is the only growth market is the diverse growth market. That's it, hands down. If I told you there was a group that had $1.7 trillion in spending, but yet most brands index 10 or 20%, you go, who is this mythical creature? Well, that's just the African-American group that sits in front of us today. The challenge is we haven't created infrastructure to be able to unlock that consumerism. And had we invested in that group in the same way we do general market, their buying power would have been $17 trillion over the last 20 years. It would have grown to that. So that's GDP transformation. Now, marketers are not going to stop reaching diverse communities. The question is going to be, who are they going to give those dollars to reach those communities? So either we're going to fight to get it as the owners of that community, or it's going to go to people who are reaching the Black community. Now, on the other side of that, what marketers don't realize is that you can't mistake reach for resonance and relevance. So while some of those other publishers that are not, let's say, Black or diverse owned might be able to reach diverse audiences, can they actually unlock the value? So go back to the 50s. P&G could use any of the networks to reach any female they wanted to, but they couldn't unlock the consumerism, so they literally created soap operas. That's why soap operas exist today, to have programming that mattered to that consumer to unlock consumerism. And so if we still try to reach this community, so the money's going to float. But if it flows through diverse-owned publishers, then we're creating the type of content that actually resonates and creates relevance, and that's truly going to unlock growth. So the answer is it pulling back? Yes, but sadly, it's still going in, just not to owned platforms, and that's where the big mistake and the gap will be. Now, I think that'll ultimately flip when they see that they're not unlocking the type of value that they want, but that's going to be the dirty little secret right now.
This is why I watch Korean soap operas.
Yes. Because, but you know, but this is the look. There's certain, to your point. There's certain, and I'll shut up. There's some of the largest African American audiences are part of media that is not Black owned, and on the same side, they also have other media where they actually talk negative about diversity. So they're taking the money out of our communities, and we're not growing our ecosystem, and yet marketers are seeing, okay, it doesn't matter, I'm still reaching them. So marketers don't understand the difference between reach, relevance, and resonance, and that's where the big challenge is. So anyway, I'm going to shut up. I don't know Korean soap operas that well, so.
I mean, so given all of those, basically all of those challenges, that lack of understanding, is there a pitch that works? You know, when somebody says, I don't see the value, how do you get them to see the value?
The question is, why don't they continue their general marketer spend if they feel like they're reaching? We are trying to say there's more than reach. There's unlock, there's relevance, there's resonance, there's nuance. I think we're having the conversation, at least in my space, I'm having the conversation that is all about profit. And the profit is in the long-term investment and continuing the strategy, which will win over and unlock that $1 trillion spend in the Black community. We reached $1 trillion spend, $1 trillion spend in the LGBTQIA market. Gen Z, we're not even gonna go into a Gen Z conversation, but we can talk about millennials inheriting the workplace. All of those shifts are what we are putting in front of our marketers and saying, we just want you to be message disciplined and continue your strategy to win out the future, to be future ready. So.
Yeah, there is a deeper brand loyalty and deeper brand trust. When you see an ad unit, 300 by 250, you can put that anywhere on the internet. You can reach the target demographic. There's there's technology that powers the data to reach the demographic you want. But where that ad shows up, the resonance Bonin is talking about, that matters. And when you show up on a rollingout.com, on a blackenterprise.com, compared to when that same ad is seen on YouTube, there's a different connectivity to the person on the other side receiving that. And so that awareness translates to loyalty, because independent Black-owned media, I'm the founder of my publication. I started it in 2008. I've run it for 16 years. So when an advertiser comes in and shows up on her agenda, my audience is connecting with that, and they're like, okay, this brand supports me, it supports my community, it supports this Black woman who is trying to rise and lift us all up. So it goes deeper than that, and a lot of independent Black-owned media, we're very mission-focused. We came into this, I came into this advertising space as an outsider. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to change the world. I want more women in positions of power. I'm gonna do that through media. So I know how to tell stories, and a lot of us do. We're good at that. And that's something else marketers need to lean into. Custom content partnerships, too. That's a whole other thing. But understanding that because we're mission-focused, we know how to tell stories. When you show up on our platforms, it's not just clickbait. It's not MFA. We're not made for advertising. We're made for storytelling. And so when you show up on our platforms, it has a different connection. Yes, there's more touch points, but Bomisi came in and solved for that. Marketers, we hear complaints, you don't want to talk to 50 publishers. Everyone is too small. They don't understand the KPIs. They don't have the measurement. They don't have brand safety. So Bomisi came in and we created what's called the Bomisi Collective, so that there's one IO, you just deal with us, and we help with the infrastructure piece. A lot of the smaller pubs, again, they have the stories, they have the audience, but they don't have the tools. And so Bomisi provides the tools so that they can compete at scale.
And I think, to your point, a lot of minority-owned publishers, they don't have the tools, they don't have the infrastructure and the investment to really, or the money to really invest to make some of these like changes in terms of like their inventory and also get in front of marketers or agencies. And so I think when we even looked at kind of the details that we saw within the report, like yes, if you ask a marketer or someone, like, do you want to increase your minority investment next year? They're always going to say, And then you dig a little bit deeper and you ask, well, what are the challenges that you're facing? How do you find that? Where do you invest? And they're always talking about reach. They're always talking about kind of meeting spend goals. So there's kind of that disconnect that's happening. And so it's less about, I think, what we really found is that we need to help like diverse-owned kind of owners and give them the tools and really provide them with the investment to help them kind of get in front of these places and in these spaces, and also allow them to really tell their story. Like that's a really wonderful and amazing story that you've been telling for a long time, and I'm sure everybody knows you, like they all know to come and invest in you all, but what about kind of new publishers or new people that are coming into the space? Like what do they do? How do they navigate? And so that's, in a lot of ways, that's why we're also happy to really kind of partner with you guys to help with these sorts of initiatives. And also then to say, okay, we have this scalable sort of inventory that you guys can invest in. What are you going to do? Like, well, let's see the growth, right? Yep. So, yeah.
Group Black, for those that don't know, similar model. We run a collective. We represent over 400 independent publishers, 4,000 creators, technology, access, content creation. The biggest thing is actually access to the marketers that they can't get in the room with. And then scale, like our E+ acquisition, which makes us the largest, I think, diverse-owned TV network today now. And it also allows us to give distribution. And so I guess the reason why I bring that up is because there's solutions in the marketplace, like us and Bomisi, to solve the scale problem. So in many respects, that's less and less becoming the challenge. The real thing that we don't talk about is, look, there's an underlying social current that happens to do with ethnicity and race. If we're honest, representation matters. And we know representation matters. You know why? Because when we want to reach millennials, we don't put 70-year-olds in the spots. We put millennials. When we wanted to transform Honey Maid, we said, okay, we're going to go after what is not considered wholesome families, same sex, interracial couples, And guess what? Honey Maid grew 21%. When I went to South Africa, they had never done a spot with an all-black cast for Cadbury. Guess what we did? We did it. Guess what happened? Pew, through the roof. Representation matters. So Black Panther, the moment you put a black cast in a movie, all of a sudden, you know what happened on Sunday? Every black friend was like, yo, where you going? I know you better be going to Black Panther. We all came out and went to Black Panther, and it didn't alienate the other, but it became the #1 movie because we saw ourselves in there. And that's the piece that we're not talking about, which is we're not seeing ourselves. I'll give you an example. When Essence was acquired, it was 100,000 people used to go to Essence Festival. They would lock their doors when Essence Festival showed. They want nothing to do with it. If you go this year, in 2 weeks, you'll see 1 million black women pretty much at Essence Festival. It is the largest day of economic generation for the city of New Orleans, bigger than Mardi Gras, bigger than Christmas. We beat Santa. And that's because we showed our people, instead of investing in putting another person on stage, which also there is that, but we put education, we put financial literacy, stuff that are from our people to our people that we want to see, and that's what grows it. So that's the piece that we're avoiding, is that there's still a challenge to get over the race conversation because we know that representation is what drives. And so until we really address that representation truly matters for these communities, it's like Hispanic market. Guess what? You're not going to put, anyway, you get my point. Representation is at the crux of this, which we're not dealing with. And that's one of the big reasons why we're excited about our E+ partnership, because it allows us to start putting out quality content that represents and showcases us in the stories that actually mean something to our lives. Like, where is the positive stories about the lawyers? Where's the our secession? Where are those kind of stories, instead of it being, ratchet and like anyway, get my point, sorry.
Well, no, that's actually a really good point. You know, we talked about the question about, you know, people aren't educated about the value. There's ignorance around the infrastructure, and then Bonin, you just brought up the representation issue, and maybe Christina, from the agency perspective, how do you begin to solve? Well, you know, to what extent do you agree with Bonin that that is also an issue, and then how do you solve for that?
Well, what Bonin said, one, I took away from you that we should just invest. Black women should be our investment strategy.
I don't disagree.
I co-sign that. Right. You all actually touched on like the agency's responsibility to invest in the publishers and the broadcasters and to close that capability gap that might be preventing the spend. I think that's important. And one of the incentives for us as agencies is that our clients, the GMs of the world, the P&Gs of the world say, no, we want to spend with these diverse-owned media. Now you go and make it happen. So us as the agency, beyond what is good, and we know good is so attached to growth, beyond that, we know that if we help build the capacity for your collective, we are going to be able to deliver those numbers for our clients, and it's good for everyone. So I wanted to come back to that investing, the capacity building, the spending, connecting supplier diversity to economic empowerment, to your DEI strategy, and not having those as individual silos around your company. I think that's a little bit.
No, I was going to say, look, I was on the agency side. I left it because I thought clients were too dumb to buy good work, so I became a dumb client. But so I know the challenges that the agencies have, but the other real, to your point, the clients, like we spent $3 billion around the globe as Mondelez. I wanted to move to 10% mobile. Our agency said, oh, it's fragmented. There's too little players. It's been the year of mobile for a decade. I said, I don't care. 10%, that's what you're judged on, go. So the clients have to be willing to put their foot on the gas to make this thing go, or you guys, your remit has 1,000 pieces in it, like, hey, do more with less, fire people, get smaller CPMs. And so, but we have to be willing to prioritize these as clients, or else, I love the agencies, but...
I mean, there's agency responsibility is what I'm trying to own. One initiative that we did, which is not enough, is not the perfect solution, is 30-day payment terms.
I agree with that.
And the 30, so you know this. Yep. The insight there being
It's real, people. Yeah. Sometimes you got to press to it to happen, but it happens, yeah. I work a lot with GM, and that's a Dentsu client on the Her Agenda side and the Bomisi side, and I am a living testament to that Net 30 being true and real, and it actually empowered me to push my other partners to abide by Net 30, which that is the standard in the IAB-IO terms, Net 30. Yeah. And so whenever I do a deal, I push for that, and Dentsu help to empower that. But also, Dentsu is doing a lot more. They partnered with Triplelift on this tech fund that they're just launching in partnership with Bomisi, and the funds are going to support our accelerator program. So talking about the capacity and the infrastructure, we're giving out non-dilutive funding to diverse-owned media, and not just Black-owned, across the board diverse-owned, giving them access to also 3 months of mentorship, training, and access to the ecosystem, the relationships that lead to the revenue and the deal flow. And that's the other component too. Bomisi started in 2020. We were built around 3 pillars: education, ecosystem, and economic empowerment. And so the Bomisi Collective, in partnership with Triplelift, Dentsu, and GM, has helped empower that. We actually are in our 3rd cohort right now. And so we've unlocked and invested over $500,000 in diverse-owned publishers, non-dilutive funding, so they can use it towards growth, marketing, anything.
But we don't want it to just be Dentsu. Come on, IPG. Where are you, WPP?
And this is
Publicis,
important.
you got some dollars. Yeah?
And this is important, right? I think that there's a responsibility of the advertisers and of the brands, right, to really kind of focus and also set standards and really kind of think through, like, what does this investment look like and how are we supporting actually making this happen? There's a responsibility of the agencies to really kind of help facilitate that and do things like changing payment terms, which are very, very important, but you know, like kind of important to you, right? It's very significant, but maybe an advertiser isn't thinking about this. And you know, I worked at an agency, so I remember kind of the back and forth around this. And then there's a responsibility of technology partners to really help facilitate, right? To help facilitate those tools and do those things. And for us on the Triplelift side, we, you know, all we do and a lot of what we do is spending time with publishers to help them build out their formats. And so really lending our technology expertise and really doing that with minority-owned publishers and minority-owned people is super important. So all three really need to work together to kind of help to facilitate this, I would say.
So, okay, so if you're an ad buyer, you finally want to make good on your pledge to invest in DE&I media, in Black-owned media, in minority-owned media. There seem to be a lot of challenges. Like, what is the one thing that you can do? Like, where do you start? Who wants that?
I start spending. I don't know. No, I think it's the same as, again, to the point, you know, there's a lot of the challenges that have been positioned have actually been solved in a lot of respects. And so I think what it really is ensuring that the players of the marketplace are getting access to share what their capabilities and tools are to you as a buyer, and making sure that you are that has to trickle all the way through the purchase chain, right? So when it gets to a planner, it can't just be, okay, a tick box. Yeah, exactly. And so that's where these things fall down, and then making sure that the client and the agency together are going back and reviewing what did we actually accomplish, right? And then I think to your point earlier, which is, you know, so we did a study, you know, we had with our original NBC partnership, 30 brands. We saw 46% on average incremental lift above and beyond when you bought direct for NBC, and we saw almost a little under 20%, 19.5% increase in all the KPIs that brands cared about. Now, we were able to do that because we're in the streaming space and it's buying at scale, so we can get real measurement. So that's the other side, is make sure that you're investing enough to measure the outcome so you can see whether you should invest or not moving forward. But most people, again, it's becoming a checkbox and not necessarily a strategy. In fact, one of the big CMOs said, if this is really what the market is, because the market is actually diversity, right? Why aren't we planning for the growth market and then the other market afterwards? So I think that, you know, adjusting kind of your headset, but ensuring that you're measuring and you're actually looking at the investment after the fact, it's probably the most important thing you can do.
And I think having a yes and approach. You know, sometimes we'll go to marketers and they'll say, well, we're already working with fill in the blank. And it's like, yes, and you can work with us, because we have more than one ways that we work, and we can all work together. The marketplace isn't that big. There's not millions of diverse-owned media platforms. There's not even barely thousands, especially if you hyper-focus on Black-owned specifically. And so we can all work together. We can have a yes and approach. I also hear a lot of talk about moving towards programmatic. That's great, I get it. You want quality inventory at scale, it makes sense. But then how can we apply that yes and philosophy? Yes, do programmatic, but for a certain subgroup, maybe below a certain number of page views, but with a really valuable audience, they're delivering quality storytelling. Can we do programmatic guarantee for this group right here? And then for a maybe even smaller subset, so you're not having 20 conversations, maybe 1 or 2, and you're doing on top of the programmatic, do some custom content, buy a spot in their newsletter, do some paid social. And you can use the same creative from the programmatic. That same 300 by 250 can go in the newsletter for a flat fee. It can go on social for a flat fee and just amplify. And then you can marry that first-party data that you're getting from the publisher with your programmatic buy. Like, there's ways to be creative about it and have a yes and approach versus a, well, we're already, and just trying to stop having the resistance around having a different, diverse approach and including more people. And I would say also, look at your media plan and look at who you spent with last year and the year before that. And now look at this year. Is there somebody new that you can add into the mix? And if you're saying, I don't have time to vet and verify a new partner, go to Group Black. go to Bomisi. We've already done the work. Like we said, the challenges, we've identified them. When we first launched in 2020, we partnered with Color of Change actually to knock on the door of P&G, of GM, to get those first meetings. And we were able to understand what they were dealing with. We didn't go in pointing our fingers saying, you need to do better. We wanted to hear, like, what are the barriers? How come it took all this time for you to see us? And so we took all those learnings and turned those into the programming and solutions that we developed. And then on the other side, we don't just talk to marketers, we also talk to publishers. We started out having regular town halls. And we put out, the first thing that we did was put out a database of independent Black-owned media companies, because one of the challenges we heard is, well, we can't find them. They're not in ComScore, they're not here, they're not there. So we created this universal free database that started out with 50 publishers. Now we're at 250. And then when you spend with us, we've unlocked the ability to spend across up to 400 partners through a partnership extension we have with Raptive. So, you know, there's a lot of creativity that we've thought of already because we've heard it all, but we're people and we're Black people, we're innovative. You tell us you can't do something, we're gonna figure it out. You give us a penny, we're gonna stretch it to get to $1 million. Like, we just know how to operate like that, so just tap in. And the last thing I'm gonna end here, talk about the wins. It's been 4 years. We're still hearing about the challenges and the problems and the barriers. But what about the wins? Like, what successes have we seen? There's not enough conversations around that.
I know we're kind of probably over time, but I do want to hear Christina and Takara both on like the one thing that you can do to make sure that you're, you know, if you want to start investing in earnest.
For agencies, if you're not working with Takara, you're not working with Bonin, you're not serious. And if you don't have an economic empowerment strategy, you're not serious about future readiness at your agency. And I think it's incumbent upon the media teams, the DEI leads, anybody in leadership, and that's my word.
Takara, you want to close us out?
Yeah, sure. I think that, yes, right, having a look and really understanding how serious you are is very important. I think, to your point, I think it's really important to take a look at where your investment has been before and to see how actually diverse that is and how you've actually changed your strategy, how you've really had an honest conversation with yourself about whether or not you're really focused on growth in minority-owned like publishers and really kind of looking at that. And I think it's also really important actually to kind of hold your partners accountable and to ask like really serious questions to kind of dig in and really understand what they're doing. So.
All right, I'm actually not sure if we have 10 more minutes or if we have to go.
I think that we
Go.
have some more time.
We do have more time. Do you want to do a Q&A or do you want to ask?
Does the audience have questions?
Yeah,
for us?
would
If
you,
not,
let's
we
just throw
can
it out,
let you
let's just throw it out
guys
to you guys.
kiki.
'Cause this is, yeah, we can
You
keep
don't
going.
need to force it if you don't have a question, but if you have a question, we're here.
We can call on people if that's easier.
I
Right,
see
we
somebody
can,
right there.
Yeah?
Sir, you can keep it.
Okay.
Thank you. My question is for someone who is starting in the industry at an older age, but who's still trying to get their feet wet. You mentioned having a list that people can refer to of like these different agencies, but do you know of a list out there for programs like you were talking about that you have that kind of, you know, follows newer companies and that's helping them develop who are coming into this area? Like, where would I go to find like that list of stuff that's available for Black entrepreneurs who are looking to get into the media space?
You can look at blackownedmedia.org. We have everything you need right there to sign up for our mailing list. We'll send you a bunch of resources. There's also a lot of great organizations doing work behind the scenes. ANA has AIM, which is an association focused on multicultural media, so they have a database there, resources there. But if you just start with blackownedmedia.org, sign up, and then we can point you in the right direction.
There's NABOB as well. We'll throw out NABOB. NABOB, N-A-B-O-B, the National Association of Black-owned Broadcasters. Yep.
Is this the torch?
I think it's some version.
I think
I
that's
think
the
that's Halle
Olympic
Berry.
torch.
I think Halle Berry is running with the torch.
Oh, no kidding.
No, this is this
You're-
is that's
you're right
excuse
about
the
black
drink.
women.
Right. Okay. I see.
I don't know if we can compete with that, but oh, sorry, the question.
Hi, I'm just curious about what you've noticed with marketplaces within DSPs and if that makes it different. Can you hear me or no?
Can you hold the mic?
Okay, better? So I'm just curious about marketplaces for DSPs and specifically if you see being packaged and placed there is making a difference in terms of scaling or like what that's like, because I see sometimes that marketplace deals, we do a lot of work in preparing them and commercializing them, but they're not necessarily tapped into. So I'm just curious as to what experiences you've had with that with DSPs.
So on the Triplelift side, we do package together minority-owned inventory in something that we call underrepresented voices, also UNREP, and it essentially has minority-owned, so Asian, African American, LGBTQ owned inventory, and we put that together so that there's a scalable solution for advertisers to invest in, and they can actually invest in it directly in their DSP through a deal. Generally, it does require a lot of conversations, right, with advertisers, with agencies to help them understand like how to access that inventory. But we've always seen a significant amount of success with that, and it allows kind of that spend at scale for the advertiser. So yeah.
I think one of the pieces we tried very similar. So we have a data cloud, our Group Black data cloud. But one of the things we try to do with publishers is to really understand what other types of support we can provide, especially in the content creation space, because a lot of the challenges, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not making enough money, so I can't publish enough, so I can't create enough inventory, so I'm never really growing, but yet I'm inside of, I'm being packaged and sold at price points that are still putting me in that treadmill. So, one of the things we try to do is help on the content creation and also increasing distribution. But that's my only point would be to try to figure out strategies to help support the content creation growth so that you're growing your inventory, not just selling it at just pure package pricing.
And this is also why we love initiatives like the Tech Fund that we're working with. And so for us, we've also talked through, instead of just talking about, oh, you can access this inventory, how are we really putting kind of the owners and the people that are kind of building the content at the forefront, and then helping them with kind of further education and further investment. And so I think sort of programs like the Tech Fund initiative and others, and also packaging up inventory through marketplaces really do kind of help with that investment.
We have time for one more question. Oh.
Okay. I know Triplelift as a minority-owned SSP. If you spend with a minority-owned SSP or another NMSDC certified SSP or DSP, would that typically count towards minority spend goals?
We're going to say yes.
Yeah.
But that's not a definitive yes. I think I wouldn't. I wouldn't be the expert on that. Yeah.
I think interestingly enough, we do find, well, we actually saw this in the report, right? On the advertiser side, they are looking at certifications, right? Are you NMSDC certified, et cetera? And I think when we also kind of talk to individual brands, it's a mix of like certification and also the people, right, as well. And so I actually, what we've seen is that it depends. It really kind of depends on the goal and the strategy.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we try to make sure that we focus on, so our original goal was to change equitable ownership, or our mission is to change equitable ownership within media. And we looked at the world and realized nobody was investing in growing the ecosystem. So how do we ensure that we grow the ecosystem? And the piece that we follow is also ensuring that the majority of the dollars are actually going into Black ownership. So, and that's what we've worked with our agencies on certifying so that they can see all the way through the value chain that the majority of dollars are going, because sometimes we might seek distribution for some of our publishers on platforms that might not be minority owned. And now the question is that fair for them to get beat up because they're getting distribution deals? As long as, and so what we look at is making sure that you can track all the way through the spend chain that the majority of the money is going back into a Black-owned ecosystem. that's how we've been able to overcome that.
And I think there's something to be said. So we are certified, but there's something to be said. We have conversations with people about, well, is this certification stringent enough? Because
Is it what?
if is it stringent enough? Is it strict enough? Or kind of when you look at the value chain, right? Or you go to the flow of dollars, what's happening there, right? So what do we want? How do we want to evaluate diverse-owned media next, or kind of ensure that it's diverse-owned, right?
I'm just laughing because when we went to go get our certification, and we certified in Miami, which is not used to, like, you know, it was harder. I was like, man, when the cops pulled me over, then I was like, I don't know, are you certified? Can I? I was like, this way it's near impossible to prove I'm black now. So anyway, but yes, I agree.
All right, everyone, I would like to thank my panelists and thank all of you for your participation.
Thank you.